Well, hello, that's me again. Today is the February 6th. It's Monday, and here's some food for thought for you for the coming week. I'm pretty sure I will speak to you more as the week progresses. But I want to revisit one book today, which is very crucial for understanding of the current events. But before I go, let me start with the demonstration of some things which can serve almost as an exhibit A in understanding of what is going on and how real economy and how real war economy and how the war works. Here it is. This is from, I believe, a couple of days ago. Yeah, it is 3 days ago, and this is TASS, and this is in Russian, but I will translate it for you. Patrushev, Mr. Patrushev, the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, one of the most powerful men in circle of Vladimir Putin, probably even number two in terms of its power and influence, of his power and influence, he stated while speaking to famous Yaroslavl engine plant that Russian aerospace industry is missing 14,000, not engineers, they are completely incorrect stating this, TASS in the body of the article itself actually corrects itself and states that there are the deficit of 14,000 people, including people of technicians and engineers, obviously. And if you look attentively on the news from Russia, even a couple of weeks ago, I wrote actually about this in my blog. Even Omsk, for example, huge city in Siberia, they miss more than 2,000 technicians and workers. And I'm talking about workers, not laborers. I'm talking about people like CNC operators, tool and die makers, and people of such high quality working professions. And you can see yourself that Russia, in this news, and let me translate to you what is highlighted in yellow, that in accordance to Patrushev words, in order to improve the quality of the cadres for the aerospace industry, there are a lot of things are being done, including the opening of the what it called the plant-based colleges or industrial plant-based colleges, and this is just 14,000 people which are needed in the aerospace industry in Russia, especially commercial part. Militarily, Russia is doing okay, but going back to Omsk, which produces number of the crucial elements of Russian military, including the electronic warfare systems and all kinds of air defense systems. So they miss 2,000 people. They have a deficit. They need it. And is this a problem? Oh yes, it is a problem. But here comes this caveat, so to speak, the small print, if you wish. In reality, when you look attentively, and including the deficit of those cadres, that means that Russia is expanding economically and militarily dramatically, which tells you about the military industrial potential of Russia, and it shows how fast Russia can expand in terms of the military production. And not only military production, we're talking about the commercial airspace, we're talking about other things such as they opened the Moskvich, reopened the legendary Moskvich auto plant in Moscow. Yeah, these are those new Moskvich are essentially remodeled, slightly Chinese models, but it's back online and it's running now. The assembly works. So, and this is the thing which is very germane and very related to what I will be talking to you about today slightly later. But as you can see yourself, it is this blessing in disguise, and it shows to you how Russia operates very differently than classic economic models in the West, which are primarily about finances, about money. In Russia, it's about producing tangibles, producing things which we can touch and which really matter. Be that food product, by the way, Russia today became not only the largest wheat exporter, Russia also became the largest sunflower seed oil or vegetable oil exporter in the world. And when you begin to look at this, it becomes very clear that yeah, Russians don't care about that much about ruble becoming the at some point of time some kind of the another reserve currency. Why? When you have the huge internal market and you produce practically everything you need, including what is many people started at some point of time a few years ago back saying, oh yeah, without Western technology, Russia is going nowhere. Well, no. It is actually the other way around. And that's what I wanted to bring up to your attention when we speak about all that. Well, here's another situation with this. This is RIA News, and obviously Mr. Scholz and Berlin are in the, between the rock and the hard place. But again, you know what? I lost any kind of sympathy to those people, and it's, it's of their own making. And guess what? Suddenly, the Secretary General of the Social Democratic Party of Germany, Kevin Kühnert, pointed out that, oh my God, once Germany announced that it wants to do the tank delivery to Ukraine, everybody in the EU suddenly all fell silent. Oh, he's so disturbed by this fact that they fell silent. Well, and as Spiegel, the major German magazine and a sewer, also begins to report based on its own sources that Berlin actually is doubting now the realization of the plan of sending Ukraine Leopard 2 tanks for formation of 2 tank battalions, which is 31 plus 31, 62 tanks. Well, Germany is operating on its own volition right now, despite the fact that we know that Scholz, who is a liver sausage, as Ukrainians call him, have been forced to do what he is doing right now, and now suddenly he wants to resume after the war relations with Russia. I mean, those people, obviously, as I already stated, they don't have ethics or any kind of morals, especially German politicians. These are low lives primarily. But guess what? One of the reasons European partners, so to speak, fell silent is because of that. Look at this. Now United States, and according to Financial Times, begins to backtrack. Yesterday, of course it begins to backtrack. Of course we know all that. I warned about this, that United States doesn't want to lose the remnants of any kind of the reputation, however talked up and grossly overblown. But here it is. The M1 Abrams tanks that Washington recently promised to Ukraine might end up being a liability rather than a boost to Kyiv's war effort, the Financial Times reported on Sunday. Such a view is explained by the armor over complicated logistics and maintenance needs. So there you go. That's your American military tech. It's really designed not to fight a real war. It is obviously cannot operate actually without very complicated logistics and maintenance. And here they explain a little bit. Maintaining the combat readiness of the Abrams tanks would require completely different types of machinery relative to other Western designated design tanks promised to Kyiv, as well as crews trained for special gadgets. The Financial Times highlighted the mechanics crews for the tanks would also take longer to train, the paper recorded. Well, yes, of course, United States doesn't want to send Abrams there. Or for that matter, have you heard recently anything about this Patriot missile system? No. It's kind of disappeared from the media space by the means of those spin doctors who operate on the attention span of the Western public, which is about as long as that of the guppy fish. But here it is, no Patriots. Where's the Patriot? Russians already asking, you know what, the huge money offered by Russian businessmen and other people who say, okay, you shoot down, or blow up the Leopard tank, here's $1,000,000. Hey, there will be very many takers, so it's, Russians take it kind of not semi-seriously. Of course they take it seriously, but they also kind of like, okay, send it in, we'll see what happens. But, as you can see yourself, Mr. What's his name, Kühnert of the Social Democrats in Germany, which are the part of the government coalition of this crazy, batshit crazy leftists from Germany, he is not basically asking why everybody's kept silent? Well, because the United States is not sending shit actually to Ukraine. United States suffered already tremendously in terms of losing its reputation, military reputation. Why should it? And now suddenly the Germany is standing alone. Yeah. And there is, of course, now the thing, which one of the posters in my blog, and many people also noted, which is correct. Russians used to call, especially after World War II, that they made a very specific distinction between the Nazi Germany. It was always this qualifier: Nazi Germany, Nazis, Hitlerites, you know. And suddenly Russians are not speaking like this anymore. They're speaking Germany, Germans. Germany is at war with Russia. German people are at war with Russia. Whether they want it or not, they elected this shit from the Grüne and Social Democrats and all that. Although I can tell you that obviously most of the political elites in Germany are worthless shit. But it is what it is, and now suddenly Germany, and it's one of these big honchos from the government coalition, is complaining that Germany standing alone and everybody keeps silent. Of course, they're smarter than Germans in this case. So, of course, they keep silent, and they don't want to face the consequences, although they already have been forced by the United States to face consequences and losing their economy. European economy is being thrashed as we speak right now. And that brings us to the other part of the European, so to speak, set of the affairs, and this is, of course, this dude in the Sun, the guy, Sir, whatever the name of his, Richard Barron's, penned the article 4 days ago about I'm a military expert. I doubt it, despite the fact that he's a sir and a general. I read his biography. It's laughable how he was taught anything at all, but I'm a military expert, and this is why I'm worried Britain is no longer secure and what the government can do to fix it. So he is talking about that NATO commander says the British army is no longer good enough to be in the top tier of the alliance. This is truly shocking, but it is true, and we must fix it. After that, he proceeds to write absolute operational crap, which is amateurs from some military forums actually would write actually better things. And of course it's all about asking the British government to provide 3 billion pounds annually for the next 10 years. In other words, it's give me money and what the capability we will get, and nobody cares. Obviously here they talk about this fairy tales about modern war, which they do not understand. I can absolutely confidently state that 90% of the Western military, NATO military, they do not understand what they're dealing with. They never knew the scale, scope, and basically of Russian economy and Russian military. But hey, he asked for this 3 billion, and as you can see yourself in this picture, we can all see this wonderful Prince of Wales type aircraft carrier, which, by the way, yesterday demonstrated completely the, utter incompetence. It is just shocking that HMS Prince of Wales departure hit by elementary blunders. What is this elementary blunders that now this hapless ship finds itself into? It is the fact that they cannot align and center the shafts of their propulsion. What is called main energetic set of the ship. In other words, the engines, they cannot center the shafts, and they send the ship and it cannot basically drive itself. It is absolutely preposterous. Centering of the main shafts of the engines of any ship is the standard routine procedure in any shipyard in the world. Evidently not in the United Kingdom, where they still cannot get this hapless ship go to sea. And this is basically emblematic of everything what is happening right now with the Western militaries. And here comes this issue. I want to kind of elaborate a little bit on how this whole, which is fake science, fake baloney, which is the modern Western doctrine mongering and all this, strategic studies, how fake they are. And I would return or revisit the book which I wrote in 2018, and it saw the light of the day in 2019, early 2019. And you probably, those who followed me, you know the name of this book. This is The Real Revolution in Military Affairs. As you can see yourself, it came out in 2019. And this book, yeah, it's a book with a lot of math, with a lot of, well, not tables, but formulas and things of this nature. But look what I want to show you, which is why it was very easy for me to be a Cassandra of sorts, and I do not pretend to be a Cassandra. I hate forecasts. I hate sitting there and predicting larger geopolitical things. But you know what? By giving the framework, and that's what I mostly do, I give the framework for people to make their own, make up their own mind, their own opinion. Here's what I started to write already then, after I wrote my first book, and within a year I finished the second one. Look what I started to write. I addressed myself towards their model, which, by the way, accounted by the Russian Keldysh Institute, very famous Keldysh Institute of the Applied Mathematics, and this was the book in 2010, and this was about the geopolitical status of their countries, based in very many important facets on the economic and military views which were propagated by such organizations as RAND, for example, let alone their what so-called Western economies, most of who are full of shit and sell the fraud under the guise of the economics, real economy, while in reality they are nothing more than MBAs and people who deal with the finances only. I'm not saying anything against finances. Finances are important, but the problem is finances are derivatives of real economy, not the other way around. And here it is. The S of t was the status of a given point of the nation, which was the multiplication of two factors. F, A subscribed t, is the function of influence, which accounts for combined influence of factors not connected to geopolitical potential, and gt is a geopolitical potential, which has its own formula. So, and I started to elaborate on this thing with which look like this. Fa of t, you see yourself, is a very long formula which was developed, this quantitative model. Don't be afraid of this formula again. It's actually very simple, and when you see sigma notation, is nothing more than addition of many other things. But look at this. Immediately, the moment I started to show this model, which was in many respects propagated by the Western think tanks and was also kind of sort of corroborated by Keldysh Institute, you can see yourself immediately highlighted in yellow. Look what I highlighted. Why this model fails. Why? You see this why? It's the nation's GDP, gross domestic product, isn't it? Interesting thing, which is one of the most important multipliers, so to speak. Well, guess what? How is this even related to the reality today? Absolutely not. You all remember that for many years I was not only critical, I told and I wrote non-stop about the fact that Western GDP figures are baloney. It's cooking of books. Nothing more than that. That the United States economy is not the largest economy in the world. Chinese is. And that in terms of the actual real economy, industrial economy, United States probably is not even in the first three anymore when you look at a scale of even India's economy. And then, of course, when you look at this and you understand that GDP numbers are complete fraud, that's when we get to the point of which I wanted to show you how the, apart from the fact that immediately discredits the one of the multiplier of this Fa of t, we go to the geopolitical potential of the nation and look what they give us again. And this was very much based, not based, but very much related to what Rand was preaching for many years, from 2005 actually. And look at this. Geopolitical potential is, as you can see yourself, it's a bunch of the multipliers where those axes with subscripts are subscript M is military, T is territory, D demography, E economies. And again, how do you measure those economies? And how do you count them? I'm pretty sure very few people on the Wall Street know how to do that, because the only thing they count are the earnings and those bubbles of the bullshit, capitalization of the most companies, which probably we're talking about blowing their capitalization. Sometimes even order of magnitude. So, and what was this? Look how I pay attention to this XM, which, by the way, has the largest power, 0.43. Here's how it looks like. This is this XM, which is military power, which itself has a number of the multipliers and sums there. Look at this. They again give us what? Wrong. Completely confusing, completely misleading M1, which is the share of the nation in global military expenditures. Well, guess what? United States spends nominally more than all other following 10 countries combined. Does the United States get the real bang for this buck? No. The U.S. expenditure is absolutely not indicative of anything except for the bureaucracy and corruption in the Pentagon and military-industrial complex of the United States, which cannot produce a viable, serious weapon system which has a serious battlefield potential. But look at this. There they are, those multipliers. Then we have M2 is the military potential of the nation's army. That means ground forces primarily. M3 is the military potential of the nation's navy. And finally, M4 is potential of its strategic nuclear forces. Look what I highlighted in this book. That was 5 years ago. As you can see, the authors of this model still persevere in using military expenditures as one of the main indices, and this is precisely where this model begins to fail dramatically. And when I was talking about this and writing about this, it was in 2018. Things were still going in Afghanistan. Obviously, Russia was freeing Syria from this ISIS scum. And guess what? It turns out that, well, I don't want to say these things about myself, but I was prescient, because basically all these models, then this was just one of the models, but they all shared the same logic. They all shared the same quantities, most of which are absolutely useless. And guess what? They failed miserably. That is how Rand failed miserably, because they cannot predict shit, pardon my French. And so the Keldysh Institute, which followed in the wake of this complete mad and absolutely pseudoscientific, in fact, anti-scientific and anti-experience, anti-empirical measures of things in the West, here we are today. And I spoke about this before. I will make a point again. Russians today, on average, they live better than most Europeans live. And I'm talking about, UK. You read about what is going on in UK and London, which is becoming a shithole. I mean, it's horrible. I feel for people. I feel for those people who die, especially elderly, because they cannot afford to pay their heating bills. And the same goes very much in Germany. Well, Germany will be completely deindustrialized, because the United States will see to it. And when you look at this, it's like you lived in completely delusional world. You lived in the world which doesn't reflect anything. And now when we talk about the situation with the, for example, US military, as I already stated before, the models they use, the level of competence, or rather lack thereof, is astonishing. You look at those US generals, they evidently have no clue what they're talking about and what do you expect from them. The only word they know is to launch, 500 airplanes and bomb the shit out of the place, which doesn't have even serious air defense, let alone Air Force. And when you look at this, and then suddenly they are faced with this horrible for them option and choice to send more of the US overly expensive, grossly overrated weapon system, which will be annihilated, and Russia will parade all gladly those things there. I mean, what do you expect? It is also goes against the very interesting piece of news that one of the shot down or simply malfunctioned KH-101 Russian missiles after the there was a photo of it, which has actually the ability to set up the countermeasures, including the countermeasures against the infrared warheads of the air defense missiles, and electronic warfare countermeasures. And that tells you one thing: those missiles do talk between each other in the salvo, and most likely one or two of them are usually sacrificed in salvo for other 10 or 20 to break through, because obviously it is basically artificial intelligence type network, which is very reminiscent of the P-700 Granite or Granite missile, which good old Oscars were carrying since the 1980s. These are missiles which talk to each other, fully networked, and that's how the salvos of those missiles break through. And now we have the confirmation of that KH-101 carries this. This is, I'm pretty sure some people in Pentagon, they had the shocking revelations about all that. But as I already stated, are there people still who understand what is going on, who can count, who can plan? Yes, there are, obviously. There is always some segment, so to speak, especially among military and intelligence professionals, even in the United States, who do understand what is going on. But most of them, they really have no clue, and they already shamed themselves to such a degree. Nobody of any import or influence can take seriously anything what comes out of Pentagon and all those think tanks or RAND or what have you, all those neocon think tanks. It's complete amateurish baloney. And that basically wraps up what I was trying to convey to you about the fact that the world of delusion is over. And this Wizard of Oz, this guy behind the curtain, you know, pulling those levers, trying to create this delusion of grandeur and power, in reality is the really old, tired, small man with very little potency, just about anything, in just about anything. And that's why I spoke about revisited my book, which was one of the less successful among my writing, because obviously there was a lot of math there, a lot of operational concept, a lot of tactical issues described there. And I'm talking about described there how it's supposed to be taught for the officers, and especially of the officers on the operational level. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. And this is not about selling the book. It just, of course, I would appreciate if anybody will decide to buy it. I mean, it's fine. But point is just that if you read this book attentively, apart from the first book, which generally gave the very solid framework about the situation which was already unfolding then, but the second book gave some tools for people who wanted to spend a little bit of time with the pen and piece of paper and figure out things on their own, and how horrible, how misleading, how amateurish, and how absolutely unreliable those models were, because they never accounted for the reality of our world outside, and especially in the West, they never knew what they were getting themselves into, and they are paying horrendous price nowadays. Guess what? We are paying this price together. Me too. I live in the United States. I'm a US citizen, and guess what? I'm facing also realities of the world which is unfolding in front of us. This is what I wanted to tell you today. So, and as usual, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee or two. So this is it for today, guys. Have a nice week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.